Hi there, my name is Clarissa, and I just turned 19. I might not be your regular teenager, but I guess we have one thing in common. Yeah, we both love this channel. After dragging my feet for a while, I think it's time to share my own story. But first, subscribe to this channel and like this video. If you don't, try not to look under your bed tonight. Okay, enough with the chit-chat. Let me start with a question. Do you feel happy when you think of getting together with your parents? Or do you wish they could stay away longer or even forever? For me, I would choose the latter 1,000,000 times over. So, I was born into a seemingly happy family of a rich dad and a beautiful mom. But unlike most parents, my parents didn't get married because they truly loved each other. It was more based on their selfish needs. My dad's wealth was what attracted my mom to him, and my dad went after her because he wanted to prove that he could marry whoever he wanted. Just because. Everything was pretty smooth sailing at first, until the unexpected happened. I was 12 when my dad suddenly lost his job. Not that he was fired, but the company ran into a lot of debts and had to fold. He got another job, but it didn't pay so much as his former job. We had to cut back on many expenses to cope with the new change, but that didn't make my mom very happy. My happy home transformed from a peaceful, money-spending one into one that survived paycheck to paycheck with constant quarrels. Every day I would hear things like, "What do you mean I can't go to Barbados this weekend?" And, "You're such a demanding, selfish wife." I didn't mind so much until I started to see a side to them that I never knew existed. First, they became so self-centered that even though they said they loved me, they still ended up putting their own needs first. They were so unsympathetic, even concerning the issues that they were a cause of. Once, they had stayed up all night on the eve of my 14th birthday, yelling at each other. I was used to this, but it lasted till morning, and they didn't even wish me a happy birthday. I got mad and complained, but they said that their problems were worse than mine. Of course, I felt bad, but I just told myself they were having a bad day or something. Yeah, it made me feel better. Before I continue, remember I told you they lived like they hated each other? But when it came to me, it was like they saw it as a chance to dump all their frustrations on me. I knew their attitude towards me was toxic, but I also didn't want them to end up getting a divorce or something. But it kept getting worse. It was their wedding anniversary, and I saw it as a chance to get them closer. I looked up some romantic ideas on the internet, and I got to work. I spent most of the day cleaning and preparing a nice dinner. I even got some candles and rose petals. I had hoped that when they saw this, they would see that we don't need a lot of money to be a happy family. But it turned out to be a complete waste of my time. They pretended not to notice the changes around the house and spent the whole of dinner criticizing the meal. I told them I took all this effort for their anniversary, but they laughed and said, "This is the silliest idea we've heard all week, Clarissa." Nothing I did was ever enough for them. One time, I had a B+ in my exams in the 8th grade. It was the most stressful term, as all the times I wanted to read at night, their fighting distracted me. I was happy I didn't fail, but when I showed them my results, my mom rolled her eyes while my dad said, "This isn't good enough. We only want to see A+ every time." So when my friend from school invited me to her pool party the next term, I just had to lie that we were visiting the suburbs that same day. Don't judge me. You don't expect me to tell her that my parents had found a way of manipulating me into believing that hanging out with my friends was why I had a B+ the last term? Yeah, exactly. Now we're both on the same page. Through all of this, I found a way of coping until one day. You see, it was supposed to be a special day for me, but they ruined it. It was my 15th birthday, and I just got straight A's too. I couldn't wait to show my parents my grades with the hope that I could finally get their approval. That, for me, was going to be the best birthday gift, but I had something else coming. I went to my parents' room to show them my grades, and just as I was about to knock, I heard my mom telling my dad that she never would have stayed longer in the marriage if I didn't come along. My dad also dished out his part and said, "If not for Clarissa's birth, I would have known I needed a career change a long time ago." Instead of throwing their words at each other, they chose to blame all their problems on me and concluded they might file for a divorce. I felt a sudden rage and I knew that I had finally had enough. I grabbed the cash I had saved up and I sneaked out. I didn't know where I would go at first, but I also wanted to get away from them. So I took a cab to the nearest orphanage. The orphanage didn't want to take me because I was 15, but I told them I had nowhere else to go. They said I could stay, but I would have to leave once I turned 18. I gave them a fake surname just in case they wanted to do a background check on me. I got rid of my phone in case my parents or anyone from school wanted to reach me. The orphanage was nothing like home. But the good thing was, I was free from constant quarrels. There were a few teenagers like me and a lot of babies. They had a lot of rules though, and one of them included cutting my hair to save money on maintenance. The caregiver said, "Don't worry, it would all grow back before you turn 18. I got to like my new look even though I looked different. There were always chores to do, and since I loved to cook, I was always assigned to the kitchen. It was like an adventure at first, but it got quite tiresome. The caregivers seemed nice at first to me, but one day, they weren't as nice. I walked into the kitchen to make lunch, and they told me how special I was, and how they liked my cooking. It felt good, but immediately, when I turned my back, I heard one of them say to the other, "She must think she's some chef or something, always trying to impress everyone." It wasn't supposed to bother me since they never said anything rude to my face, but the truth is, I had developed low self-esteem from living with my toxic parents, and I didn't notice until now. I went to the same high school with the other orphan teens. The school wasn't as cool as my former one, but it felt good to not be pressured to have straight A's in all my classes. There was also this girl in my class who never liked me from the first day I stepped in. I never knew what the deal was with her, but she was always looking for ways to make me look stupid. She got her chance one day when I was coming out of the female toilet and I bumped into her. She almost screamed because she first thought I was a boy. Then she said, "Oh, it's you. You shouldn't have cut your hair." It was clear it was intentional. The others standing around started to laugh. But then Miss Lane, the school counselor, was passing by, and she shut them up. Since that day, Miss Lane tried to get close to me on many occasions, but I always told her to back off. I hated that she was always trying to advise me on schoolwork or how I related with my classmates. She might not have meant any harm, but I saw it as a reminder that I wasn't ever going to do anything right. But she was stubborn, and we ended up as friends. We became so close that I soon started seeing her like the mother I never had, or something like that. I mean, she always listened to my rants about school and the orphanage without judging me. I didn't dare to tell her about my parents yet, though. I was in my final year of high school when the orphanage told me it was time to leave. They said I needed to make space for the next abandoned child out there. Miss Lane took me in and looked after me until I was done with my finals. I wanted to go to college, but there wasn't enough money. Her salary barely fed us 3 meals a day. So I decided to apply as a junior chef at a Mexican restaurant in a nearby city. Miss Lane said she had a cousin there that I could stay with, and she wrote down the address for me. But my cell phone died immediately when I got off the train. All I had was the address, but I didn't know how to get there. I was wondering what to do when I bumped into a guy. He looked like he was in his early 30s, and I was about to apologize when he apologized first and asked me if I was lost. It was getting late, and my interview at the restaurant was the next morning, so I showed him the address, and he offered to drive me there. He was quite friendly, and we spoke as though we had met before. He said his name was Jake. I told him why I came to the city, but I noticed that he moved uncomfortably and changed the subject. After he dropped me at the address, he wished me luck and drove off. Miss Lane's cousin was relieved when she saw me. She had been trying to reach me and feared I was lost or something. Anyways, I had a nice dinner and went to bed anxious for my interview the next day. At the restaurant, the senior chef asked me to prepare a dish as the first part of the interview. I didn't know many dishes, but I had gotten some ideas from YouTube, so I whipped up something. Just as it was time for her and the other chefs to taste it, the manager came into the kitchen and said, "I would like to be a part of the interview today." I almost shit my pants. No, not because the manager wanted to taste my dish, but because it was Jake. He tasted my dish and immediately told me I was hired. The senior chef tried to explain that they weren't done with the interview, but he insisted. I could tell that she wasn't happy. For the few days that followed, she spent more time complaining about everything I did than mentoring me. Once, she told me to prepare a dish I had never heard of before. I did my best, but she said, "You're never going to last here. You're not good enough." The words cut through me like a knife, and a sudden rage shot through me. I called her names, and I told her she wasn't even a great chef anyway. She first looked surprised, then she smirked. Apparently, Jake had heard everything I said. Right in front of everyone, he scolded me. I tried to explain what had happened, but he cut me off with a final warning and left. But the senior chef didn't stop there. She decided to bring up another situation to make Jake question if he had made a wrong decision. Once, Jake asked me to work with the senior chef on a signature dish for the restaurant. I had a couple of ideas and I wrote them down. When it was time to meet with Jake, I couldn't find the book where I had written the ideas. Lucky for me, I knew them by heart, so I left for the meeting. I was halfway in when I heard the senior chef read off all my ideas to Jake. He was so impressed and said, "Bravo! I hope Clarissa has more ideas for us." I was so angry, but since I had no proof of the ideas being mine, I just lied that I didn't have any ideas to share. The days that followed, the senior chef made fun of me. But whenever she said something toxic, I chose to filter her words in my head. It worked, but she had more plans. A notable food critic was coming to the restaurant, and her evaluations were either going to make or destroy the restaurant. But there was a problem. We didn't have all the ingredients for the dish the food critic was coming to evaluate. The senior chef made matters worse by assigning me to the dish. I did my best, but just as it was time for Jake to come taste the dish, she sent me to get her something from the storage. When I returned, Jake was upset and said, "This can get you fired. I hired you because I thought you were great, not to ruin my restaurant." Then he asked me to try the dish. It was too salty. It wasn't that way when I left. I knew it was the senior chef, but I couldn't accuse anyone in the heat of the moment, so I just had to begin again. Everything went fine, but I knew I was already in Jake's black book. Since I couldn't complain about anything, I decided to quit. But thank God I first informed Miss Lane of my decision on the phone. When I told her I was going to quit, she pressed further, and that was how I told her about my parents. I expected her to get angry that I had kept it away from her for so long, but she said, "You might not have been able to choose your parents or the people around you, but you can choose how you react to their toxicity." The words illuminated me. So I confronted the senior chef the next day and asked her why she didn't like me. She said a lot of things, and that she was the one who spoiled the dish I prepared. She ended by saying, "You want to be the manager's favorite? Well, no one can take that position from me." She was a total jerk. The next time Jake was around, I told him everything and I had a recording to back me up. Jake was mad, of course, and placed the senior chef on probation. The other junior chefs saw me as their hero, as they had also gone through the same ordeal, but they never had the guts to speak up. Of course, things got better, and I even became good friends with Jake. Maybe it was fate that finally smiled on me, but I'm glad that despite not getting the kind of attention and approval I craved for from my parents, I have learned to prioritize my own happiness, and this has boosted my self-esteem. Now that I was fully confident, I went to see my parents. I wanted to know if they ever looked for me, or probably got divorced. They weren't divorced, but they hadn't changed either. Immediately as they saw me, they started yelling at me and saying, "You don't deserve us! Do you know how worried we were?" The old me would have felt bad, but I told them they don't deserve me either, and we hugged each other. I don't know if I'll still be visiting them again, but I wished I had done this earlier or even spoken up before things got this far. But I guess it took a while for me to accept that no one has the right to mess with my mental health. Not my parents, not anyone. Cheers to freedom!
Hi, I'm Jeremy, and I have a wonderful family of two loving parents who are always willing to do anything to make me happy. Sometimes they argue, and sometimes they scream. Honestly, it's my mum who argues and screams, but whatever. They're amazing, and have always supported me, and for that I'm forever thankful. Without them, I wouldn't have succeeded to become the captain of the football team or the top student in my science class. For all these reasons, I never questioned what I know about my parents, up until what happened a few weeks ago. Despite being this amazing to me, my dad has always clearly been different from other dads of my friends. I know that a lot of people expect dads to be tough, great at handiwork and football lovers, but my dad has never been any of those things. He's quite scrawny and softly spoken, never wanting to get into a fight or even an argument. I never found that an issue, but still, that didn't mean I never saw. As a teenager, hearing people talk about my dad behind his back always made me very frustrated. That never stopped. Whenever he comes to school to pick me up, I hear my classmates laughing and mimicking the way he talks or walks. That made me angry. Tom, another football player, asked me once, "Dude, are you sure that guy isn't your mum? My dad could kick his ass." I tried to ignore it and walk away. These guys are clearly just mad that our team had crushed them, I told myself. Then a few other guys had started to crowd around, blocking my path as I tried to leave. It was then the second guy, Andrew, chimed in. "Has your dad come out as gay yet?" Well, it was along those lines, but there was a lot more swearing and some sharper words were used. Before he could say anything else, my fist had sunk into his jaw. I left the school quickly, before even comprehending what I'd done. To nobody's surprise, my parents and I were called into the principal's office the next day. It turned out that Andrew wasn't too happy. His parents were very angry and joined my parents in the principal's office to learn more about what had happened. Andrew's mother was very annoying. She kept staring at my father and then whispered something to her husband's ear, and they both laughed. The whole situation started to get on my nerves even more than before. Then the principal started to talk and preach about being peaceful and not to use violence, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. I was totally focused on my dad, trying to read his facial expressions and making an effort to find the right words to say. Can you imagine the whole situation? Imagine you're in my shoes and have to confront your dad in front of all these people that you don't like. The principal asked me to explain to everyone in the room why on earth I acted violently. I didn't want to say anything. Then my dad requested an answer from me, only to be followed by my mother demanding me to utter. My dad asked me the same question again, and I seriously wish the ground would swallow me up. What should I say? How can I tell this to my dad? I had many unanswered questions in my head. My anger, sadness, frustration were all growing way beyond my limits. When my dad stood up and said angrily that he is not leaving the office before he knows the truth, the whole situation was choking me at that moment, and I exploded. Within 1 second, I rose on my feet, looked my father in the eyes, and screamed at him, "Tell me, why do you do all this? Why don't you act like the other dads? Where's your manhood? Do you really want to know what happened? My friends called you gay. They all call you gay." My parents looked at each other and lowered their heads. Angrily, I asked, "Why are they silent? What is it, Dad?" No response, just silence. I grabbed him from his arm and asked him again, this time louder, "Is it true? Are you gay?" I could see him holding back the tears and he didn't answer. I was shouting again, hysterically, and asking him to tell me the truth, when he stood up and said, louder than ever, "Yes, I am gay." I was speechless. I couldn't grasp anything. I could only think of how my father has lied to me. He betrayed me. He will never earn my trust again. I thought of all the scenarios I'll face and the responses I will hear from my friends from the moment they know the truth about my dad. That exact moment, I felt like I'm losing consciousness. I looked around. Everything was blurry. I could only spot the faces of Andrew, his parents, the school principal, and the counsellor all looking at me and grinning. That shocked me. How is it possible that this whole situation of my personal emotional rollercoaster felt like an entertaining movie scene for them to just watch and grin? Without looking back, I slammed the door hard and left quickly. I felt very fragile and weak in that moment for exposing my reality and bitter emotions to some remorseless people. Despite my shock, I learned my lesson. Our personal life is called personal for a reason. I'm still adjusting to my new reality, but whether my dad is gay or not, it's no one's business. At least I have a wonderful father who loves me more than anything else in life.